starting to wonder how many times it's going to be where someone tells Jules, read the pact, and she doesn't read the pact. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The 5th episode of The Silo is here. It's called The Janitor's Boy. A really solid episode. You get a little. This is one of those ones that misses the intensity, the stuff that we got in episode 3 with some of the intrigue and world building and story building fleshing out, like episode 4. So in this episode, Jules picks up right at the end of the last episode. She finds the file that Holston left for her. She's looking through the file, getting some information on George, but nothing really that she doesn't already sort of know about George, except for one key thing is that he was adamant about saying that he was alone and hiding where he got the watch. So he was keeping Holston off the trail, and she's like, I don't know why you were so adamant about hiding that. But that's all that she sort of gets from that. She then gets a note saying that Deputy Marnes is dead. Another body has dropped. So, yes, when we saw the last episode where an intruder did arrive into his home, we didn't really get to see the face, but, yep, he is dead. So another body hits the floor. And she's racking up a lot of murders to solve in her first couple of days as being the sheriff. So she arrives on the scene with Marnes' body, and Sims is there already with Billings, who has now been appointed sheriff's deputy. Sims has sort of self-appointed him to be that point. And it's more so a way for him to keep an eye on Jules. Jules doesn't feel like Billings is there for any other reason than to be the eyes or the sort of the pigeon that reports everything back to Sims. Sims also gets really competitive with Jules and saying that, hey, somebody should have been at the front of the door for Marnes to sort of keep this from happening. And she's like, well, I suggested it and he didn't want it. He's like, well, you should have made that happen. And sort of bucking head and trying to put blame on her, sort of make it look like she's inept at her job. And to the point where he even says that, like, your Marnes wasn't really feeling you at this job. No way. He said, we should just go ahead and get this job to Billings now because you are clearly somebody who Marnes thought would be burnt out of this job, washed out of this job pretty quickly. What is clear is that he wants Billings in place because Billings seems, while he does seem capable, he seems very wet behind the ears. He's willing to kind of do whatever it is that Sims asks him to do. And so that is what they got with him, and that's why Sims want him in charge, or the being the sheriff, because they know that we can tell him or have him do whatever we want. We can put whoever we want in front of him, and that is who they're going to say is guilty or not guilty of this. Whereas with Jules, we're in for a handful with her. The mortuary team arrives to kind of remove a deputy's body, Sam's body, and she asks for a second to look around. She gets a minute in the room by herself, and she does two things. One, she remembers the painting that she had of Mayor Johns on the wall. It's been torn and removed. A piece of it still remains, but the rest of it's been removed. And she goes to Sam's body, pulls back the sheets, and reaches into his pocket to get the list of addresses and address and phone numbers that he had in correspondence to who he wanted to go after in regards to the rat poisoning situation. He has name circled, and he has all that stuff. She pockets that and puts it away and then leaves. And then she goes into a meeting with Bernard, Sims, and Billings. Bernard comes up with the story, much with some help of Sheriff, to say that perhaps the mayor and the deputy were lovers. And instead of the whole idea of like these old folks tried to come up these things together, that they died as lovers. And they're like, well, Billings is like, well, that would have been unsanctioned. He's like, who gives a damn? Who cares? At their age, who cares about being unsanctioned? They were in love. This is what they're going to do. But he's doing it more so to create a diversion. People, if you hear about two murders, they're going to get all up in arms. But you hear about two people with an unrequited love that they couldn't really function or put on paper, died together. Like when one died, the other sort of died behind. He gave a heart attack and he couldn't go on anymore. That reads better. And it also gets people off the trail of like, oh, they were in love, as opposed to two people were brutally murdered. So they're going with that story to sort of create to keep face with the folks of the silo, because bodies are starting to drop left and right. And they kind of want to be like, all right, Everything's fine. Everything's calm. We don't want to get anybody riled up or get anything started. But in addition to saying that about the deaths, that's what they're going to do for the funeral. After the funeral, they're going to have a race to the top, from the bottom to the top, and whoever wins that race will get a mayor award and an honor in the name of Mayor Johns, who she hated these type of races because she said they always ended up in tragedy or something crazy would happen, which he's still not wrong, even in death. Sims and Billings leave, and then Bernard just sort of gives Jules a little bit more of a heads up. He's trying to very much feel that he is one-on-one or like a little bit more in her corner, but he lets her know that, hey, if you haven't read the pact, you should probably go ahead and do that, because the one thing that it says is that you should be brown-nosing the judicial team, because they're going to be the ones that are the most up your butt and you're going to want to get them off. You want to be a little bit more kinder to them. The funeral happens. Both Bernard and Jules speak at the funeral, and then everybody sort of takes a bite of what looks to be a peach. It could be an apple, but it looks like it was a peach. Everybody takes a bite of the peach, and then they throw it in. And basically, they're going to bury them and then have trees build up around them so that, yes, they're part of the soil, part of the ground, but it's not just left as a big vacant spot. So you can sort of see it, as others have been buried, trees have kind of grown up in their place. Deputy Hank from the down below, from the deep, comes up to go see Jules and just check in on her, just to see how she's doing. Martha and Shirley and all those folks back home are kind of concerned, just saying, "Hey, you good up there?" And she's like, "Nope, I'm good. Go back, let them know I'm good, and I appreciate you thinking about me." So then Sandy comes in, and Sandy being Holston's former assistant and quasi-secretary, comes in and sort of checks Jules, like, "Look, here's what we're going to do real quick. I'm going to make you a proposition. I'm going to be here, and I'll do whatever it is you need me to do. I'll be your person if you need me to be. If you go and find out who killed Barnes, Judicial's going to do everything possible to just put whoever they can to not have us pay attention to who actually did this and just serving someone up as a patsy. And I need you to get to the bottom of this." Jules kind of is like, "Oh, I thought you wanted me out." I was like, "I do, but so do they. And if they get you out of here and put Billings in or put somebody else in before you get out of here, you're the only person I can believe that will actually look into this, where somebody else is just going to come in and be like, cool, that's what they told me to do. That's what I'm going to do. You don't seem like the type of person that operates that way, so I want you to find this out before they do move you out of this." What is funny in this is that she sort of plays a position of power. Jules always wanted the door closed, so when she's done with her speech, she opens the door all the way and just kind of leaves it at that. Jules doesn't like make any eye contact with it or like acknowledges it with her facial expressions, but she's aware, like, okay, I see what you just did. Jules then quickly goes off and is like, "All right, bet, let me go start finding some stuff." So she gets up and goes to look. She gets saddled with Billings, much to Sandy. Sandy's the one who's like, "Hey, you should take Billings with you because he knows this. He knows the pact. He knows this place. He knows everything well. He knows what he can and cannot do." She doesn't really want to take. She's kind of hesitant, but she's like, "All right, cool, come on," because she knows that he's probably a spy or an eyes for Sims. She takes him on the first one. They go looking around and knocking on people who are on this list. First place they look at, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't know who you are. I did not kill him." And he has some type of disease that he clearly wouldn't have been strong enough to do it. So they move on to the next person. But that's when Jules is like, "You know what? Where are you from? Cool, you close to home? How about you go home and go do that, spend some time with your family, and I'll go look at something else." Not saying that she's going to continue the case, but she's like, "I'll go do something else." But we all know she's going to go continue the case. But they're both kind of lying to each other. She goes continue the case, and Billings actually, instead of going home, he goes to Judicial to see Sims. What Jules does is she goes to look up Patrick Kennedy. So Patrick Kennedy is the gentleman who Marnes got punched from. His nose got broken. He's the one who punched him in the episode before when they go to his place. So Jules goes back to that place, knocks on the door, but no one is there. No one is present. She then breaks in. She's got the badge on her side. She then breaks in and circles around a little bit. She sees that there is a deputy's painting of Mayor Johns is in here, very cleanly, very folded and put in not plain sight, but put in plain sight. And it's clear that this person was set up to be here. It was all set up to be here. So then just she's leaving, someone comes out and was like, "Hey, Patrick Kennedy?" And she's like, "Patrick Kennedy? No, he hasn't been there for months." So then she goes to actually see Patrick Kennedy, who's working, and she asked Pat, like, "Hey, real quick, you said there were two things as to why you would have anything to do with the killing of Mayor Johns. One of them you said was about your wife. What was the other? We don't really get the answer, but it's more so that's not his home anymore." And Jules realizes that. So she takes him and is like, "Okay, look, somebody is trying to set you up. Somebody is trying to set you up majorly. So I'm going to take you and I'm going to put you away so that they can't find you. I'm going to put you in some type of secret spot so that they can't locate you until I get to the bottom of this." Billings goes to talk to Sims. While Sims is there, we see Doug Trumbull, who looks a little bit like the guy that might have entered into Deputy Martin's home. But he's at judicial. Billings is kind of a sap and is like, "Hey, who's that?" He gets kind of hurt. He's like, "Wait, that's your shadow?" Because that's how Sims writes it off. He's like, "Yeah, this is my shadow. He's coming in and just talk to me for a bit. Doug, I'll see you later. Go ahead and head out." To that point, the Sims has a seat with Billings and kind of just like wants to get an ear for how he feels about Jules and how he thinks Jules feels about him. Like, do you ever trust? Billings meets Jules back at her office, and Billings says, "Hey, real quick, just so you know, I'm going to give you a heads up. Judicial gets reports earlier than like you guys. Like, there's people who will talk to Judicial before they'll talk to everybody else, and they've already sort of got the guy who apparently did all of these things. So we should just wait a warrant and go grab him, and I think we'll be good to go." And that's when things into her head. So, okay, Judicial is trying to get me to look this way and set up this man for taking the fall when it's actually this person that does it. So Jules ignores that request and says, "Hey, cool, Sam, do me a favor, give me a warrant." She's like, "What's the name?" He's like, "Give me a warrant for Patrick Kennedy." And Billings is like, "No. We need one for Ralph Melby." And he's like, "Well, get one for that too, but give me Patrick Kennedy's first." And then they start leaving. As they start leaving, Stanley tries to reach out to Jules and is like, "Wait, what's going on?" And Jules is like, "Look, somebody is setting up Patrick Kennedy. Much of an a-hole as he may be, he did not do this, and someone is setting him up." And they cleanly just put his photo into a home that he's not lived in, thinking that he was still there because they have not updated their records. That's why I moved him, because the second I have you go ahead and put that warrant in, they're going to go ahead and move to try to get him out of there. So please go put that warrant in so I can go ahead and meet whoever it is that did this and kind of flush them out. Warrant gets put in. She goes down there, and you guessed it, it's Doug Trumbull, the gentleman that she saw, that Billings saw in the office. Apparently, was the guy who actually killed Marnes. He killed somebody else too. We'll find out a little bit later. So Jules meets Doug at what is supposed to be Kennedy's place, and just lets him know, like, "Hey, you probably should have done a little bit more research. When his wife died, Kennedy hasn't lived there in ages, and you put the evidence that is supposed to damage him into an old couple's home. So yeah." And then she goes in to try to arrest him, and then a chase ensues. It's pretty intense because they are running down the silo while the people who are doing the running of the silo or up the silo, they're running up. So you got a massive amount of people coming up while the two of them are heading in the opposite direction. And it's pretty intense because at any point in time they could clothesline or cut one of them off or knock them off. Doug eventually stops, comes back, and charges at Jules, and then tosses Jules over the edge of the silo. And it's intense because she's just hanging on for dear life. It looks like we might lose her. She tries to pull out her knife to get his fingers from prying his open, but then that knife drops, and it's just her on that edge by herself. Luckily, some folks who are running in the tournament, the festival that they have, and some onlookers, a kid sees her hanging, and they kind of go save her, and they continue on their race. When she comes back down, when she gets back and free, they take off, and then Doug is nowhere to be found. They can't find him. So that's when Doug goes to go meet Sims, and he finds Sims at a janitor door that he sort of followed him to at some point in time to know that that's where he would be. It's at that point that Sims comes out and sort of just chats with him a little bit and says, "Hey, tells him a story about his dad." He's like, "My dad was a janitor, and everybody looked down on him. Everyone looked down on him. My mom, his wife, kind of just gave him the riot act all the time. Just thought nothing of him. Nobody took anything that my father had to say for serious because he was just a janitor, and I was just a janitor's boy. And so I would get bullied at school all the time. And I came home one time and told my dad about a bully, and I wanted him to do something about it, and he didn't. And the next day, I'm still getting bullied. And all of a sudden, come school, and that bully's gone. His father's been reassigned, and the bully's nowhere to be seen. And I don't think anything of it. I have a feeling that my father may have done something about it, but I don't think anything of it. And then my dad one time asked me, he's like, "Hey, how's it going with that bully situation?" And that's when he sort of knows. He knew. And then that's when I wanted to start shadowing my father to see what was happening on the other side of that janitor door, because I knew that something was happening. And when I find out what's on the other side of that janitor's door, it's something that is the most important thing to the silo. It is single-handedly what he's saying, single-handedly what keeps the folks, the 10,000 plus folks of the silo, keeps them going, keeps them moving, keeps them alive. It is the energy that keeps this place afloat. And so whatever I do on the other side of that janitor's door, whoever I put and bring to the other side of that janitor's door, they have to know that there's a sacrifice they have to give for the people of the silo to know that this is the most important thing that you can possibly do. His tone then changes a little bit. It's like, Doug, you done effed up twice, man. 2 times. You messed up with George Wilkins, which lets us know that he's the one who was responsible for George Wilkins' death. But clearly, he did it. He went through with the action, but he is not the one who gave the orders to do so. You did that with George Wilkins, and you did it with Patrick Kennedy. So it's not quite clear if he's the one who killed Deputy Martin, but yes, I feel like he did all of those. He did that one correctly when he did the other 2 incorrectly. But then he asked him real quick. He's like, "Well, are you willing to do any and everything to protect the people of the silo?" And Doug's like, "Yes, yes, I am. I'm willing to do whatever he wants." And then he pushes them off the silo. Sims just takes him and shoves him dead square off that silo, and calmly just goes back, comes towards camera, and just goes back to the janitor's room. So it's at that point that Jules and Billings go to Judge Meadows, and Sims is present there to sort of present the case, present the facts. And they basically have solved the case, at least on a surface level, they have solved the case. Judge Meadows does sort of question, why would somebody who was a 7-year employee all of a sudden want to do this? Like, it doesn't quite add up, but it's all buttoned up in a bow here. Everything seems pretty satisfactory. And she looks to Sims like this should suffice as far as appeasing the people with an answer as to who did this. And Sims like, yeah, no, this should be fine. To which she says, okay, well, then there's nothing else to look into. Jules and Billings are kind of like, well, we'll look into this. We'll look into the rat poison. We'll look into other things. And they're like, nope, no need to waste all that time doing all of that, because we've got enough to sort of suffice the people of the silo. So don't worry about it. We're all good here. Which should be a telltale sign. It's like, why are they so adamant or quick to just say, nope, that's it. Nothing else to look forward to. And because there was a note on Doug that was going to be the note that he put on Kennedy, and also fittingly worked for him, then they all kind of just all tied up perfectly. It's the perfect sort of send-off for them. So that's it for that part. And then Jules returns back to her office, where Sandy all of a sudden is now is leaving and saying like, yeah, I've been reassigned. Voluntarily. She's like, I've decided to go back to be closer to home, which is 105, which, by the way, Jules does sort of call her out on, like, hey, you gave me crap from being down deep, and you're at 105. You're not much better. And she's like, hold on, we don't eat our young. You guys do. So there has been a level of respect that has been granted or formed between the two of them. They still don't like each other. She still doesn't rock with her because she's not hosting, but she does kind of like, I didn't expect you to solve this as quickly as you did. And I don't think anybody else would have done that besides you. So thank you. So like, as much as I think Kennedy is an a-hole, he does not deserve to rot and die for something that he did not do. So she's kind of happy about that. But then she's gone. That's it. She also mentions quickly, though, that in addition to me wanting to be closer to home, I do feel like people are watching me here. I feel like I'm being watched and listened to and spied on. And Jules asked by who, and she's like, we're not going to go into that now. Look, I just feel like that's what's happening. Jules heads over to Bernard, and sort of a pact is made. Bernard is doing everything possible to sort of sweet talk Jules and say that, yo, I am a friend. If you need something, I plan to be here. Yes, I'm only here for months as an interim, but I plan to be here for a minute. Because of that, I would like to sort of form a closer bond with you. So if there's ever anything that you need, no matter what it is, just let me know, and I hope that I can somehow facilitate that for you. So at that point, that Jules. Let me say this before I say what Jules did. I call bull. It's bullshit. I don't trust Bernard. I don't trust Bernard at all. I feel like Bernard and Sims are one and the same coin. One might just be a little bit more snake-like in the manner of which they express how they feel. Bernard's very much the "I will get on your good side," kind of like the Iago of it, whereas Sims is like a brute hammer. Like I don't like you. I don't like you. I don't like you. You're going to see this from the front door, where Bernard's coming in from the back door. Neither of them do I trust. That's it. Jules does think that, hey, I've got to end with him now, and he does sort of trust me, so I can sort of give that to him. So she asks, like, hey, can I get 2 days off? He's like, well, you just got here. Where do you want to go? She's like, I want to go back down. She's making up some stuff like, I didn't pack enough because I didn't really think I was going to stay here that long, but apparently now I'm in it. So I'm going to go grab some more stuff and come on back up. He's all right, cool. Go ahead, do your thing. Before she heads down, she does stop by the cafeteria and look at that big screen where that one guy. I didn't clock a name for him. My apologies. The one gentleman is there, still just watching the screen, and this time he's starting to like write drawings of. He keeps seeing a pattern. And anytime that there's night and a clear sky outside, he starts seeing stars, and he's like, the stars are starting to write a pattern. He makes out, Jules makes out a W in the pattern, but that's kind of the end of that before she starts heading back down the silo, and she's essentially going back home to see Martha, because remember she gave Martha some things to kind of look into to figure out. But she gets down there, and Martha kind of at first tries to let Jules say it herself. Like, hey, Jules, how's it going up there? She's like, oh, it's going pretty good. He's like, oh, cool. Why is the knife that you used to rock with almost came close to stabbing somebody down here? Because I hear you were hanging off the side of the silo. To which Jules is like, yeah. And she's like, you don't think that news travels down here? You don't think we don't hear about those bodies dropping? Like, we are aware. We're aware. And if this keeps happening, it could cause a sort of a revolution to sort of start down here, because you guys keep trying to kill people and then hide them. And Jules is like, I'm the sheriff. You can't just go around talking about revolutions. But then they started getting talking about some of the things that Jules left. She's like, I haven't really gotten a chance to work on that too much. It's at that point that Martha's like, hey, have you read the pact? And she's like, no. People keep saying it. I've been told to read the pact about 5 times, which means, Jules, at the very least, you might go ahead and start perusing that bad boy just a bit. But Martha lets her know that there are 2 very important key facts in the pact. One, we are not allowed to do any mechanical machinery that will take us up or down the silo. That's why you have to walk up or walk down. There are no mechanics that can be used. I'm not entirely sure why machinery is not allowed, but that's one. The other is that there is no allowance of any magnifying glass besides a certain power. So if you have something that's super magnified, like times whatever, you can't use it. So the biggest that they have a magnifying glass that would not be allowed in most places, which gets me to believe that maybe something with the screen, if you put a magnifying glass there, may look a little different. I don't know. But those are 2 key pieces that the pact says that you can't, under any circumstances, you can't have those in the silo. They then get on to Martha and then Jules then get on to talking about what's next. And she's like, well, I'm back to trying to figure out what happened to George, or who put the motion in for George. To which she says, well, how are you going to figure that out? She's like, well, I just had a talk with Bernard, and I think Bernard trusts me and I trust him. So I think I need to give him something that will sort of push us over the edge, give us a bit of a bait that will help him come and assist me in all of this. And what she feels that is the Pez dispenser that George had. She feels that that's going to be the sort of key to unlock whatever it is, this mystery box of what happened to George, and who put the orders in for George. Solid episode. We meet 2 new characters in both Billings and in Judge Meadows. Billings seems like a bit of a wet blanket in the fact that they think that they can control him and that he does whatever it is that they say. And so that's why I think they all want him up there so quickly, because they can see that Jules is not of their world and is not of that, and kind of operates more as a rebel. Judge Meadows seems cagey as all hell. And while Sims and she feel very guarded and manipulative, Bernard also seems like he is playing a system and playing a game to get Jules to feel comfortable, and then he's gonna lay the hammer in. I don't trust him at all. And I think the only person I do think that Billings is trustworthy. I just think he's so naive and he's going to always sort of report back to Sims and kind of get whatever Jules is doing in trouble. So I just hope Jules remains smart enough uh, to not give him too much information. I think the sequence that occurs with the silo again, this show manages to ratchet up tension at a high level when it needs to, and you're on the edge of your seat. I think a lot of it is because this is a miniseries, because I've not read the books. I don't know. I honestly don't know who's living or dying. And so losing Mayor Johns, who was a major character, losing Holston, losing Marnes, like we're losing characters that for at least first 4 episodes, we spent the majority of our screen time with them. So I don't think there's any out there. So I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to like, hey, people can just wiped off quickly. So I'm excited. I'm fully invested. This is the show that now I look forward to every week. I'm like, it's Silo Day. Today is Silo Day. And now that Love and Death is over, this is all I got that I really truly care about. So what did you guys think about this episode of Silo? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.